Meaning, so to come back to the point, we are at the point of, and I am at the point of confronting myself here, so to say, to not be too careful, but to be able to balance throughout these measurements of the systems which I want to confront myself to deconstruct within what has been created through myself throughout the acceptance and allowance of what I believed in, to use consciousness and so on, and coming to the point of deconstruction would be then only considered to be understood throughout being able to, of the perspective from outside of the box. This has got nothing to do with physical or the attempt of trying to break something and then to create something new. Not at all. It's got to do something with something that is being achieved through only self-aware possibilities of oneself, and not as exactly where I wanted to regard this point, which one this was leading to, not representing any kind of guru form or Führer form or the solution. Here he is, and he's going to take all the system efforts to create something new, and to have a, for example, new president who fixes us all on this party outside there as a political system. They will achieve something refreshing and what is best for all by voting for them, and then only having, in the democratical sense, understood and misunderstood completely throughout the measurements of what is ego and what is self. The ego mind, so to say, has understood democracy, but only throughout a period of time where one is able to vote and put an X on what is a party within the political system, which oneself would be accumulating as oneself, the voter for a party, and one's neighbor would vote against this effort as keeping it secret, for instance, vote the party which would be the measurement of one party considers to like blue and the other concerns to like red. And so to take these two individuals who've now voted in the democratical system of how it's running right now, still within the measurements of the old system, would create practically, okay, I'm a Democrat, I've voted, so the day it is clear that the party shows the new chancellor would make the one personality, ego, character, neighbor, X go, whoa, my party is one, and the other one who is one's neighbor, confronting oneself throughout the talk, for example, talking about the outcome of this voting of a political new system set in, and starting to have a talk about who have you voted for, and then there would be the confrontation of two neighbors desiring the effort of giving others the responsibility of the party red and the party blue. And in any sense, this is not the common sense, which is not being approved to understand in the old system, which is not active anymore since a couple of years. And so to be able to work within the new system, one knows that political efforts have always been built on polarization, and which would mean strife, which would mean what is not at all best for all life, as including oneself, but creating more and more strife, which would then end up in a total devastating reality of a war once again, because the one party attacks the other through strife, and it all starts within a little point of not considering that each step we do is absolutely not responsible, and responsibility at all has not been understood or lived, is then the absolute self-deception of life as such. To trust further on those who have been selling trust throughout, which is then in the political system of not taking reaction towards responsible saving life, but only saving which in the economic senses is the applause of a system built upon energy such as money, and celebrating actually its downfall because the mass has believed in something within the belief system of being oneself is never to be achieved then, as to be rather achieving the illusional concepts of many personalities within the ego, and then considering this applause of applauding the world downfall, instead of applauding to be considerate the point of self-responsibility in a democratic system, to keep that alive, or to actually create it in the first efforts of self-responsible, self-honesty and self-aware achievements, to be able to self-forgive for oneself, are the only tools one can work with to create democracy, instead of what is the equation of 1 + 1 = 2 in consideration of self approval of ego plus the capitalistic system as it runs now equals irresponsibility. One would be in a system and then practically become the system, and in the instance of being able to turn the volume of what is the emotional system within our abused mind down towards a point of not becoming numb as being totally emotionless, but rather set something in and turn up the volume slowly, step by step, maybe by achieving what is empathy and answering oneself to be aware of what one is doing actually in life, instead of gratifying the sense of I think that this is right, by then I create an illusion and this is then myself. Never, but many personalities as the ego would be never having achieved something very, very important to understand, which would be forgiving each other, and which would be then as well also in the belief system manifestations of the economists taking over and being part of the religious systems, of course, within all systems as such. Stepping outside of the system would then show to oneself that one has lost the challenge that only oneself can give oneself, and taking this choice, meaning creating self as a being, as a human, living individual being, which would then handle in each kind of action, reaction equals consequence measurement, being able to reach out toward the on the long run effort to be able to create a action reaction equals harmony measurement, instead of nodding towards the sense of, well, this is the planet Earth, it's on fire and it's in Satan's hands, so let's become evil and watch this whole go down the shithouse and flush it down and watch it while it burns down, like somebody said, and definitely would consider the opposite nowadays, because it's been too difficult in the old system to consider this kind of then it would have been kind of philosophy or some kind of intellectual bullshit, which is not what I've accepted myself and allowed myself to come to a point of, that this is all of course to be considered and understood how I've been as a person, as an individual, as a human being among many of us alive on this planet, but to make the step towards a possibility that is granted to all of us, because all of us are possibly are able to understand to do so, if it's even so understood within what I'm trying to express here is a kind of confrontation towards a if one within a big mass of people who starts to create and self-realize oneself and manifest as one's self-characterization as a character being alive, while others still have actually no self-aware acknowledgement towards if one is self-honest or self-dishonest, one would be confronted with within a mass of something different is evolving and could be meaning danger, which is all again in the paramount of fear created within the system of one's abused mind. Continuing part 6.